There we go. Go live. Okay. Jesus. I'm finally live. I think I'm finally live. Okay. Yes. Go live. Okay. Jesus. All right. We're live. Finally. Finally. Jeez. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble. I got to go back to SteamYard. I didn't have half this much trouble when I was at SteamYard. Okay. So today we're doing world events. Wanted to talk about the Ukraine in particular and a lot of other stuff that's going on in the world. Something more important than the nerd stuff I talked about last week because, you know, nerd stuff. Right, Joan? Right, Little Joan? Oh, I got to give Little Joan a treat. Got to give Little Joan a treat because you guys have been checking out the books. Here you go, Joan. That's for you. You take care of it. Somebody started reading Wokistan a novel. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's my most political book, I would say, that I co-wrote with Christian. Hollywoke, another novel, the sequel, which I wrote, is pretty close in terms of the politics, but it's more about the movie industry and cultural stuff than I think the politics. But, so, as always, check out my links at Amazon.com. Do we have anybody in the chat? Is anybody here yet? I think I have. I got one person watching now. You're watching? Hello? Hello? So this is my new weekly thing, the Sunday live stream at 2. And I just wanted to get back into live streams again and talk about various issues. I'll be clicking back and forth from the stream so I could see my comments or your comments and various things that I'll need to check out on the internet in order to have this discussion. This discussion requires a little research. World events requires just a tad bit of research. Now, the one thing I wanted to say today, and I don't have a lot of people in the chat yet, but they'll come along, I guess. But I'll repeat this later probably. Is what Justin Raimondo of antiwar.com would say all the time. He passed away a few years ago. Justin always said that the U.S. foreign policy is based a lot on the domestic policy. And I think that's very important in analyzing the current world events, especially regarding the United States. So what that means is the people in the United States are so ensconced in power. I mean, we basically run the world. I was just arguing with some communist on Reddit about who runs the world. And, you know, he was given the usual argument, you know, in the EU and Canada, they only work 7 hours a week. And in the United States, people work too hard. They work too hard. Yeah, because they want money. They want money. Now, do people get screwed in the United States? Oh, sure, all the time. All the effing time. But it's way more complicated than the idiot communist paradigm of like, well, the boss runs things and he just exploits you and blah, blah, blah. It's way more complicated than that. But, you know, people in the EU and Canada have their own problems because there's so much socialism in the EU and in Canada. Look at Canada now. Oh my God, what an absolute cluster F it is up there for COVID. Same thing in the EU. Now the UK finally broke away, and now Paris and Ireland have done away with all their mandates. And I think that's going to continue because that's just the trend. But man, the Canadians are holding fast. They're holding fast. Trudeau is an absolute disgrace. And so when you say, whoa, they got it great. They could sit at home and not do a lot of work and not get exploited. Yeah, but they don't move, you know. When you want to move up in the world, when you want to make money and get a nice house, or maybe just make more money so you could expand your business, it's really, really tough, especially in a place like the EU and the European countries, because there's still a bit of a, not really a caste system, but more of an aristocracy. The rich stay richer and the poor stay poor. So it's no wonder these commie idiots in Europe are still communists, because it's very hard to move up. It's not nearly as hard to move up in the United States. I mean, there are guys I know, they dropped out of high school and they just started working, and they're just savvy, shrewd business guys, and they just make a lot of money because that's what they want to do. If you want to make a lot of money in the United States, and you're willing to work and you have any talent whatsoever, you'll move right up. You will. You might have some setbacks. You might have to, cheap out early on in your life, but you'll move up. If you're a hard worker, you will eventually move up. That's not true for communists, because a lot of them are very delusional. A lot of them are college kids. A lot of them want to be in the creative fields. I mean, that's part of the goal of the leftist ideology, is so nobody will work and everybody will be a creative. And what they don't understand about being a creative, it's way more work in its own way. I work constantly. I don't take vacations. The idea of me having a vacation, that's just crazy fantasy world for me. It's crazy fantasy world. When everybody I know goes on vacation in the summer, I'm here cranking out the books, or I'm going to a convention to sell my books. That to me is what I need to do. I don't make enough money to do that. And communism won't help that. No. More socialist policies won't help me sell books. People will have less money. Even less money. Unless I sell books to the government somehow. Then you'll be rich under a communist, socialist utopia. But, so yeah, I mean, you look at the policies in Canada and the EU with regards to COVID lockdowns, and it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. But the upshot of being in Europe is that the United States essentially pays for your defense. Essentially. Same thing in Canada for a lot of respects. They don't have to spend billions and billions of dollars on defense. They just don't. They've always relied on us. They're part of NATO, and the United States, the umbrella of protection, can help them. But rather than do something really cool like spend more time, building up their infrastructure, that just didn't happen, because I think the United States has undue influence over these other countries, and we essentially run them. And you look at the policies of Australia and Canada and even the EU, those are the policies they wanted here. But they weren't able to get them here. There was too much resistance here. But there wasn't as much resistance in these other countries where our undue influence allowed them to, no, you got to do this. You got to do the lockdowns. We'll try to do it too, but you do it first. And you see the end result. And now it's all gone tits up. Because what are they going to do, right? What are they going to do about COVID now? The entire thing has fallen apart. JEC says, I mean, the two big oceans on either side of us retry good protection. Adds retry good protection. I think you meant really good protection. Yeah, that's true. That's true. What's Canada's excuse, though, right? I mean, what's Mexico's excuse for being lame? Yeah, we do have a lot of protection, and that was part of the deal in the United States when we were founded, right? I mean, just to be away from the entangling alliances, as Washington put it. No entangling alliances. Trade with everyone, no entangling alliances. But getting back to the Ukraine, and let's get into it a little bit. I'm clicking over to antiwar.com, so if you have a comment, I'll have to get back to you. But, the U.S., as usual, has sort of this schizophrenic kind of foreign policy. We bombed a Syrian dam, which was on the no strike list, whatever the hell that means. I don't know why. And he has no control over the generals now. And there are forces within our own government that want to have war with Syria, want to take it out on behalf, I'll say, in the Middle East. Is it a good idea to take out Syria? Absolutely not. They're an ally of the Russians. And look, and I've said this before, the Russians are better than the Chinese. The Russians aren't. And look, they're corrupt. All governments are corrupt to one degree or another. The Russians are pretty corrupt. But the thing is, I would rather be with, you got to pick your poison. If you're going to align yourself with a government, don't align yourself with China, a bunch of commies, a bunch of commie fascists that throw people into yourself with the Russians. And they got a lot of problems with crime and the mafia and corruption. But we could help them with that to a degree. I mean, if we made peace with the Russians, started developing their real estate, as I think Trump wanted, first off, we'd make a ton of money, and that money would turn into influence with the Russians. They would be making all sorts of crazy money, and we would say, hey, look, you got to clean up your act. This is making us look bad, and the Russians would. The Chinese aren't going to listen to us. They're trying to play us. So to me, it makes zero sense to JEC, damn autocorrect. It makes zero sense to get involved with the Chinese, but here we are. But over at antiwar.com, Senator Chris Coons opposes sending U.S. troops to the Ukraine. We would simply be sacrificing them. Now, this is a senator from Delaware who's a Democrat. The Bidens practically run. Here they are. Their own senator is saying, don't go to war in the Ukraine. Now, that's one of two things. Either he has turned against Biden, unlikely, or the Bidens told him, hey, help us out here. We can't go to war in the Ukraine, but we have to look like we want to. So say something that'll help us in this area. And I mean, but Coons is right. I mean, it would be pointless to send troops to the Ukraine. And a little background on the Ukraine, which, I'm not an expert on, but I know something about. I know something about the Ukraine because I read about it. Now, my understanding is this. The Soviet Union, during that time, exported Russians to the Ukraine, and they pushed the Ukrainians further and further west. And they, at that time, considered the Ukrainians a bunch of bumpkins, a bunch of know-nothings. The Ukrainians hate the Russians, by the way. They hate them. In World War II, they did horrible things to them. Absolutely horrible things. And Jordan Peterson talks about it, and you can read about it. I mean, the starvation in the Ukraine was insane. Absolutely insane. It was so bad, they had to put up signs saying, don't cannibalize your children, basically. I mean, that's bad. They would arrest people for picking up grains of rice or wheat after a harvest, because all the harvest had to go to the collective, essentially, and then you had to get your grain or whatever from the state, and if you kept any for yourself, they'd throw you right in the gulag. Right in the gulag. So it was horrific. It was so bad, the Ukrainians sided with the Nazis during World War II. And there is a famous Ukrainian fighter who, I think his last name's Bandera, who joined the Nazis and fought against the Soviets. And he is still considered a national hero in the Ukraine. Yeah, so unwind that. That's why there's neo-Nazis in the Ukrainian government in Kiev. And that's basically part of the reason they came into power. The neo-Nazis were the muscle. Now that we haven't heard a lot about them in the last few years, I think it's probably because they got wise to the PR disaster and basically just changed their names and got away from that. But they're still there. They're still there. There's still a lot of anti-Semitism, a lot of homophobia in the Ukraine, and the Ukraine is a basket case economically. I mean, it doesn't have its act together. It's a third world country essentially. So then you've got provinces in the east that are mostly Russian, and this is second, third, maybe even fourth generation Russians who identify with Russia. They don't want to be part of the Ukraine. They want to be part of the Russian Federation. And that makes sense, that they would willingly want to be part of the Russian Federation. The Russian Federation is in much better shape than the Ukrainians, even with our aid, even with all the aid that goes to the Ukraine. So, it's sort of, they are like going to pick their poison. Do they want to be part of a puppet government that the U.S. is stringing along, or do they want to be part of Russia's Russian-speaking federation? Well, it's really not much of a choice for the Russians and the Crimeans and all those people. They want to be part of the federation for the most part, even with its corruption, even with, it provides them with some protection, and the economy's better. Are the Russians going to exploit them? Oh, sure, absolutely. The Russians want the Crimea for the warm water port, and they also would like to pick up a second warm water port, which I think they would if they take over the eastern provinces of the Ukraine, which is ginormous at this point, or always has been ginormous. Ukraine is just huge. And at this point, I don't see any other reconciliation other than you're probably going to have to split the country apart because, you're headed for a civil war anyway. So the best solution would be for us not to go to war, not to arm up the Ukrainians, but say to the Russians, hey, look, there's a complicated issue. You effed this up kind of for everybody back in the Soviet days, but we need to come up with some diplomatic solution here that everybody can kind of live with. And maybe the Russians wouldn't be so aggressive, but they see an opportunity here to pick up another warm water port. I don't think they're going to stop that. And they're very protective of people who are Russian speaking and identify as Russian. So look at what happened to the Georgians. So I think the Russians are pretty committed, partly for nationalistic reasons, but partly because it's in their interest. And really, what do we have to gain by going into that part of the world? Again, what we should be doing is making peace with Russia. So it's not even who cares? Oh, they got a warm water port? Oh, good. They could use that against China when we go to war against China. The Russians and the United States against the Chinese. That wouldn't be much of a battle now, would it? But, you look at Biden. Biden has so many problems in this area. I mean, first off, he's weak, okay? And I don't say that lightly. I'm not a guy who talks about, who's weak, who's strong, and, I'm not like when Trump started talking about you got to show strength, I was like, come on, dude. Come on, you just got to be competent at your job. But looking at Biden, oh my God, I've never seen a weaker guy. I mean, he's physically weak, right? He staggers up to the podium. He forgets words. He stammers. He's unsure of what he's saying. He's asking questions. People in a position of power. When you're in charge, you shouldn't say and do certain things. You shouldn't project weakness. Even if you don't know what you're doing, you should go up there like you do. Because even if you just have, a team, right? Even if you're just like I have guys underneath me for the webcomic factory, artists who I work with. I don't want to project like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing or when I'll pay you or, I don't know if we'll even have a website 2 weeks from now. Like, that kind of vibe is really negative for artists who are working for you. They don't want to hear that the website's falling apart. Then they got one foot out the door, and they're not going to concentrate on what you need for them to do, right? Even if that's true, and it's not, by the way. The Webcomic Factory is fine. We're just not really making any money right now. By the way, if you'd like to sponsor the Webcomic Factory, send me an email. But you got to project that you got it together at least. You don't want to project every little problem you have. And Biden, he doesn't have that filter anymore. He did when he was younger, but now we're lucky he doesn't just get on a podium and start spouting off the nuclear codes at this point. He's lost it. He's absolutely lost it. Now, add to that the history of the Bidens with the Ukrainians. It's bad. The Ukrainians, you'll remember, hired Hunter Biden for some job at an energy company. Now, I happen to think during that time, this was during the Obama administration, that the Obama administration had some scam going on with the Ukrainians trying to get at Russia for their energy at that time. Not exactly sure what was going on. It probably had something to do with the pipeline and trying to keep that at bay. But, it's clearly a conflict of interest when the son of the Vice President of the United States is at a foreign country, working for them, getting gobs of money for a job he never shows up for in a country whose language he doesn't speak. And then there's a prosecutor who was investigating that very same energy company for corruption, and Biden goes over there and he bragged about this. You could see this video online. Search Biden, Ukraine, and probably like bragging. He actually bragged about this a few years later. Now, this was before he was running for president, and I don't think he had intended to run for president, which is why he bragged about this story openly. But if you haven't heard it, it goes like this. He's sitting in a forum, and he basically brags that the United States wanted to get rid of this corrupt prosecutor that just happened to be investigating an energy company his son worked for. So he tells them, listen, you gotta fire this prosecutor. If you don't, you won't get the $1 billion in aid we're promising you. And you have until, 12 hours until I get on the plane and leave. To which the Ukrainian president was like, well, wait a minute, you're not the president of the United States. And Biden goes, call him. Go ahead and call him. And he laughs and goes, sure enough, they fired that prosecutor. Yeah, and that was the end of the investigation into Hunter Biden and that, I think it was called Burisma? And he brags about this openly. He blackmailed the Ukraine. He blackmailed them over $1 billion, which we probably shouldn't have given them anyway, but that's another story. And these people had the cojones to accuse Trump of that very thing when he was president, right? So Biden is beholden to some degree to the Ukrainians because his son got money, because his son could still be investigated for whatever the hell he did or didn't do in the Ukraine, which isn't a huge issue. I think it's more that what the Bidens did in China is a much bigger worry. But so here you got Biden stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it's about foreign policy, again, domestic policy, as I said earlier in the chat. Justin Raimondo said the foreign policy of the United States is really about the domestic policy. So it's the people in charge doing stuff overseas just so the people back home can be impressed with them and reelect them and support them and whatever. So Biden's effed up the economy. He's effed up COVID, which I'll get into a little bit. Although I got to be careful. I got to be careful to say stuff on that. He's effed up energy. He's effed up prices, the supply chain. Name something, education. Name something Biden touched and it's gone wrong. Immigration. It's all gone wrong. He has nothing. His poll numbers are collapsing beneath him, that so bad that CNN, The Atlantic, Bill Maher, everybody's coming out against him, at least on the COVID issue now, right now. And so they may be teeing him up to get him out of office. I don't know. But, Biden is desperate to get his poll numbers up. You know what gets him up? A war. Because that's when everybody supports the president. So that's my worry. It's not even my worry we're going to war, because it's not looking very likely that Biden can pull it off, but it is looking likely that they might try. And if you look at the withdrawal in Afghanistan, how badly Biden effed that up, you can imagine a scenario in which he tries to, gin up a war, a proxy war. He probably doesn't want an actual war. He probably wants a proxy war with the Ukrainians and the Russians, and ends up effing it up and starting World War III or something. That's my worry. Now, that all being said, I don't know if Biden's really in charge of anything, right? I mean, it seems like he's got a cadre of, I call them the conference table, or the conference room, like in Star Trek The Next Generation. Those guys are probably the guys running it. And Biden is relieved to have those guys, because he can just say, oh, okay, what do you recommend? What do you recommend? All right, it seems like we got a consensus here. Let's do that. I think that's the way he runs things. He's not like Trump, where Trump's in charge. Everybody comes in and gives their 2 cents, and then Trump goes, yeah, this is what we're doing. Biden, he doesn't want to take responsibility for anything. What is he taking responsibility for? He goes on TV and says, I'm doing great. Yeah, prices are like triple. Gas is going through the roof. Everything's falling apart. Oh, you're doing great? By the way, speaking of prices, the Biden administration wasn't able to push forth the OSHA mandate for workers here, but they are refusing to allow in truckers from Mexico or Canada unless they've been vaccinated. Now think about that for a second. Think about that. We have a border that the people are pouring over. They're pouring over the border. No one's being checked for COVID. Not really. I mean, are they testing people? I guess they're testing people who are symptomatic, but... And look, the tests are useless anyway, but the thing is, it's an inconsistent policy. If you're going to say, oh, if you don't have your papers in order, truckers, you can't come into the country, well, you certainly got to say that to an illegal alien. You got to say, hey, whoa, you can't come in here. Can't come in here. Where's your vaccination pass? If you're going to do that to the truckers. Otherwise, doing it to the truckers, what does that accomplish? What are you doing? The only thing I can think of is they're purposely trying to slow down the U.S. economy. And the supply chain situation is the same damn thing. They're trying to jack up the prices. They're trying to make everything worse. To what end? I don't know. They want to push this great reset. A lot of people talk about that. There's no way that'll work. I said that in the beginning. There's absolutely no way they're going to push this great reset. People will look. They'll rise up. When the food runs out, all bets are off. Okay, when the food runs out in Canada, and I just saw a video on Twitter saying things are really desperate in Canada. A lot of empty shelves, even worse than here. When the food runs out, oh, then it's on. Then it's on. Then you're talking. Yeah, you are in trouble. People aren't going to starve. They're not going to let their kids starve, and they'll do anything to stop it. Anything. Now, we have so much food in the United States, and probably in Canada too. We have quite a bit of backlog, so it's going to be rough, I think, for the next year or so until things get back in order. Hopefully they do. And we had a system prior to this. Oh, I got some comments. JEC, Biden has watered down and weakened your military down, promoting CRT and kicking out the unjabbed. Russia would whip the U.S. at this point. Nah, still won't. Still won't. I know it seems that way, There's no way. We outspend the Russians 10-1 on our military. So even if you figure five of that is waste, I mean, we still just have way more tanks and missiles and stuff. It's ridiculous what we have. There are something like 40,000 truckers supposed to be arriving in Ottawa, planning on parking their asses until Trudeau pisses off. That'd be great. That'd be great. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that. God, Trudeau's a disaster, isn't he? And what's his excuse? At least Biden can say, "Oh, well, I'm old. I didn't know. I didn't know. What? I did what? I signed what?" But Trudeau, man, God, what a monster he is. He disgusts me. He really does. You know, as much as I hate Biden, I can't stand the man, but you know, I'd pick Biden any day of the week over Trudeau, over that woman in New Zealand. God, she's awful. Any of the Australians. I mean, as bad as we have it better than everybody else. So, because we still have free states. I mean, I'm in New Jersey, and it's, you know, right now we are the blue state that probably has it the least worst, I would say, unless you count Virginia, and they're turning red, because our tyrant governor Phil Murphy, I call him tyrant governor Phil Murphy. You know, he is progressive as hell, but only because he's showing off for the National Party. Is he really that progressive? The guy worked at Goldman Sachs. I don't think he's that progressive. I think he's another, you know, a rich shark of a guy who he became a Democrat, and now he does all these things that Democrats do. Like he marches with BLM, and he says progressive things, and he passes progressive things, and then he has a diverse cast of people, and you know, he goes on TV and says, "Oh, I think we gotta listen to the voice of the unheard." You know, he just says these things. Does he mean him? No, I don't think he means a word of it. But that's even worse, because he's just willing to blindly do it because the National Party wants him to. But at the same time, he got a wake-up call this election in New Jersey, because he almost lost. It was close. The election was close. Jack Ciattarelli, probably if he had endorsed Trump, he would have won, because the people who were hesitant about Jack were mad because he didn't endorse Trump. And if Jack had been a Trumper, I think he would have won. I think he would have taken some of the voting strangeness to court, and he might have won. But he wasn't a true Trumper, but it was a shock to the New Jersey GOP that it was close as it was. And it was very close. And it was only about, I think in the end it was about 20,000 votes, something like that. No, maybe it was less than that. I want to say 60,000, I don't remember, but it wasn't that, no one thought it was that close. They thought Murphy would be 9 points ahead, and then it was almost dead even. It was almost dead even. So if Ciattarelli had been a real Republican, if he had been we had a guy who did win, a trucker named Ed Durr, who unseated the, I guess he was the New Jersey House Speaker, who was a very powerful member of the New Jersey legislature. Sweeney got unseated, and Sweeney even vowed to fight him in court, but he didn't. Do you predict a red wave for the primaries this year? For the primaries? Well, you mean the midterms, I think. The primaries would be, in the United States, which Republican you want to run and which Democrat you want to run. So the Democrats have the primaries and the Republicans have the primaries, and you pick, you know, if there's 5 candidates, you pick the Republican you want to run. In the midterms, which is what I think you mean, we have elections for Congress and Senate in 2022. Yes, it's going to be a huge red wave, assuming H.R. 1. Oh, this is Evan Monster said this, by the way, Evan Monster. It's going to be a huge red wave. Everything's pointing to a massive red wave. The Democrats will be lucky to win anything. They'll be lucky to win anything. And they'll probably win their deep blue districts. Midterms, yes, okay. They'll win their deep blue districts, like AOC and Ilhan Omar. They'll keep their seats if any of them are running. I don't think any of them are running. But 28 House Democrats announced they're not running because they know they're going to lose. So they just said, I don't want to run a losing campaign. I'm just going to retire. Then I don't get that loser tag. Then they could just point back to the Democrat that lost and said, see, I didn't lose. You lost. I would have won. But, I had to go back and hang out with my family or whatever. So, yeah, assuming, if H.R. 1 had passed, we would have been in trouble. We would have been in big trouble because then mail-in voting would have happened everywhere. It would have nationalized the elections. The Democrats would have essentially controlled the elections. And they would have, I don't know what they would have done. Maybe they would have put rhinos in place to make sure it looked good, The Republicans would be stymied, but, there'd be controlled opposition. Because the rhinos really are controlled opposition. They're neocons, like Dan Crenshaw, Liz Cheney. They're neocons. And they are part of the establishment, and they just play the game. And they'll talk a big game in front of the cameras, and then behind the scenes they'll be like, "Oh no, we gotta bomb Syria. We gotta go to war to Ukraine. This is going to be good for my portfolio." But the GOP now is full of populists, and we want them to be more full of populists. So hopefully the midterms will elect a bunch of populists. I don't think Dr. Phil is running for Senate in Pennsylvania. I don't think he's a populist. He is too easily sort of flip sides. But I would love to see the red wave. I can't wait. And all indications are it's a red wave. I've been watching Sticks and Hammer. If you don't watch Sticks and Hammer, you're really missing out on this kind of stuff because he follows the polls very closely. And normally, he explained this morning, normally the Republicans go into an election with a 9-point deficit overall, right? And that has to do with the number of voters and popularity and blah, blah, blah. So that's just sort of a general number. And I'm sure corruption figures into that number to some degree. So you go into an election with a 9-point deficit. A Republican had to really be awesome in order to win. You had to win by 10 points just to barely win. That has changed. Now the Republicans are going into the midterms with a 5-point advantage. A 5-point advantage overall. So now the Democrats got to kick up their game, and none of them are doing it. None of them are doing it. The Democrats are not ready for this 2022 midterms. They don't care. They are caught up in CRT and woke politics and being so far left they've driven off a cliff. They're caught up in the Russia stuff. They want war with Russia. I'll tell you right now, if Biden pulls the trigger on the Ukraine, every Democrat will stand up and go, yes, bomb the Russians, bomb them to hell. They would support it instantly. Maybe you'd have one or two that wouldn't. I doubt it, though. Who's left? Who is left on the Democratic Party side? No one. There's no one left. Dennis Kucinich is gone. Tulsi Gabbard is out. You think AOC is going to be anti-war? She has no principles whatsoever. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, the squad, the idiot, now they got 7. The 7 idiots who are basically socialists, they don't give an F. They don't give an F. Those people are unprincipled hacks, in my view. They'll say and do anything to push their socialist nonsense. Thankfully, they don't have any power. Not really. They just have influence over the Democrats, and it's part of the reason the Democrats are falling apart. The Democrats should have kicked them all right out of the party. All right out. Even if it hurt them. They should have said, listen, we're Democrats. Be a Democrat. These are the 10 things you're supposed to believe in. You don't believe in it, out. Out. Go be Democratic socialist if you want to be a socialist. You got to stand up for something. And the Democrats are famous for this. The Democrats put up with Joe Lieberman. Joe Lieberman. Okay? Joe Lieberman spoke at the Republican convention. He was a neocon. Well, neoliberal, really, but because he was a Democrat. But he was so to the right of the party and so much of a neocon, really, the Republicans asked him to speak at their convention. It was ridiculous. And then he became an independent and screwed them anyway. He still caucused with them, but that's how desperate the Democrats are to maintain power. They have no principles. They have none. And part of that is the left has an ideology which they want to liberate everything. And go to James Lindsay's channel, New Discourses, and watch some of his videos. They want to, I mean, this is the extreme left, but it's an influence on the party. They want to liberate everything. Everything. And so there are no limits on the left. There are none. Limits are bad. Limits are bad. Limits on abortion are bad. That's why, unfortunately, we have abortion on demand in New Jersey right now. Idiot tyrant Phil Murphy passed a law to protect Roe v. Wade. So now, if you want an abortion, all the way up until you're dilating, you're about to have the baby, you can have an abortion in New Jersey now. Yeah, it's too far. Now, I'm not anti-abortion. I'm not. I believe there are some cases in which an abortion has to happen. But I really think, as a libertarian, it should be mostly, unless in extreme cases, it should be a choice between a woman and her doctor, and that's it. Maybe the husband gets involved, but, you know. So no one wants abortion used as essentially contraception, right? If you're going to have an abortion, you should have it as soon as possible. You should have it absolutely as soon as possible because because you have no other choice. But abortion on demand all the way up until birth, that's barbaric. It's just barbaric. There's no other word for it. You know, there should be, if you're going to have, if you got a kid inside you at 7 months and you suddenly decide you don't want it, well, there should be like, oh, don't worry, you know, we have an adoption. You'll have the baby, it'll be adopted, you'll be taken care of medically. Like that. That is something, you know, even though I'm libertarian, I would totally endorse the government doing, because you can't just kill a baby. Jesus. I can't believe I even got to explain that. I mean, you just didn't have to explain this kind of stuff back in the 80s. The Democrats were just not that. They were way more reasonable. They would go, oh, no. But Phil Murphy pushed and pushed and pushed, and now we got this law because he's so progressive. It's going to destroy the Democratic Party in New Jersey. It's destroying it. It's destroying it right now. They don't think it is, but it will. Because between the election of Ed Durr, and now we have a more red legislature, and we have a very rhino legislature, a very rhino GOP. But it's changing. We're getting some Trumpers in there. So I think it's going to continue red because that's the trend. And I think the next governor of New Jersey will be probably a rhino, but definitely a Republican. And that's, hey, and even when the rhinos get in, they want to fortify the election for them, so that'll be good for the party. But the thing is, the National Party has a lot of influence, right? So even if you get a rhino in there, like Jack Ciattarelli, who I think is a rhino, if you have Trump back as president in 2024, and likely you will, you know, he may not be a super hardcore Trumper, but he'll kind of have to pretend to be. And then his policies will have to reflect that. And so he'll be pushed further and further right, pushed to be more based. So it works both ways. Now, I don't want it to go too far right, obviously, because too far on any side of the spectrum is bad. But yeah, I want to see that. So in terms of the midterms, I mean, it's going to be a massacre. Unless the Democrats somehow pass H.R. 1, unless they somehow really, really cheat again, they're going to lose. They're going to lose the House, definitely. They're probably going to lose the Senate by a couple of seats. And then what? Then the Democrats are screwed. There's not a single policy. Biden is pretty much a lame duck now. He's going to be a lame duck officially when that happens. And then you're not going to be able to make a move. Not a move without the Republicans. Then the Republicans can pass legislation that they've always wanted that was too unpopular for them to pass when one of theirs is president and blame it on Biden, right? Now, Biden will probably veto that stuff, but you might be able to push it over the hump. So many people, I don't think it's possible mathematically that the Republicans will win enough seats in both houses to be able to override vetoes. Not in 2022, but by 2024, I think so. I think by 2024, by the time Trump runs again, God willing, I think he'll be reelected finally, justly, and then by 2024, you might have a majority in Congress. But then again, if you got the president, the House, and the Senate, and the Supreme Court, you're golden, right? You're golden. The only problem is your rhinos. And a lot of them are going, too. Mitch McConnell, he's not in great shape. I don't think he's in great shape. But again, it all comes back to the domestic policies, which I want to talk about momentarily. There's this article, and lots of these articles are popping up. I got to click off the stream for a sec. And this is from Yahoo News. I am done with masks. We've been idiotic about them since the beginning. Okay, now this is ostensibly another left-wing journalist going on and on about how, oh God, masks were so stupid. Masks were stupid? Now you're saying masks are stupid? And he goes through, Fauci's flip-flop. And Fauci's flip-flop with the mask happened right at the beginning. Right at the beginning. None of these people talked about it. None of them did. Fauci said, oh yeah, you touch the mask and the masks aren't very effective. And it turned out he lied. He was saying that so people wouldn't go into stores and buy up all the masks, which wasn't really even a danger. And, he goes through the whole thing about masks and how he's just done with the mask. Although he takes a shot, he's in Virginia, so he takes a shot at Glenn Youngkin, even though Youngkin ended the mask mandates. He still manages to criticize a Republican. So, he's like left-wing. But everybody's coming out against the mask. Bill Maher, The Atlantic, a few others. They're all coming out against the mandates, against the mask. Oh, we've been doing this too long. Yeah, subtly. Oh, subtly. Yeah, I guess you got your marching orders. We're going to all turn against this now. Oh, now you're going to turn against this. A year ago, since the beginning, for some people, they were saying, these masks are ridiculous. These masks, especially the cloth mask. I saw an infograph on the microns and how they're filtered, right? So a smoke particle is 10 microns big. And firefighters said, a surgical mask, that really won't help you in a fire, to breathe through the smoke. And the particles are 10 microns. A COVID particle is less than a micron. So if the surgical mask won't even help with smoke, how's it going to help against COVID? Now, and then he talks about, and YouTube, I'm talking about what he said, not what I'm saying, wink, wink. He talks about how Biden is letting go of the reserve of N95 mask and passing them out like candy. First off, the N95 mask, you can only wear them so long. You're only supposed to wear them like 2 or 3 hours, I think. You can wear them 4 or 5 times, and then you got to throw them away. So How long are those? Even if you assume everybody gets a mask, and I think they passed out 400 million masks. Let's assume everybody gets a mask in the United States, 300 million people. Let's say, you got 100 million to cover whatever. I didn't get any masks, by the way. Let's assume you got everybody covered. What's that? A day? 2 days? Maybe. You got 4 masks. Let's say you got 4 masks. You wear it. You wear it 2 or 3 hours, 5 times. That's like two days a mask. Okay, maybe we get to the end of the week. Then what? All those masks go in the garbage, right? Or they're supposed to. Then what? And you're talking about the, like, Omicron? Yeah, good luck. Good luck. That's not going to work. And even if it did work, let's say it worked perfectly. Everybody used their mask perfectly. I mean, what are you going to do after a week? Pass them out again? You'll never make enough masks. Not everybody's going to wear them. Not every kid's going to wear them. You know, he talked about in the article how kids don't listen to mask mandates. Yeah, no kidding. They're children. They're children with an infinitesimal chance of getting you-know-what. And so what are you doing? What are you doing? I got a weird message. Who is this? Somebody with a Russian name says Sister 19 LOL online. What is that? Is that some sort of porn thing? Am I getting porn pop-ups in my chat now? What the hell is that? That's weird. Sister 19 LOL online. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. We don't have time for porn. We're talking about world events today. Porn will be a different day. Anywho, so yeah, now you've got ostensibly the left turning against Biden on COVID, the one issue he had. It's like the one issue he had going for him. People signed on to Biden because of the damn beer virus. That's the night. Every Democrat I talk to who has nothing to say about anything, the one thing they'll say is, well, you know, Trump really screwed up the response. Oh, worse than Biden? Not anymore. Not anymore. See, if you're going to blame Trump for the deaths initially, you got to blame Biden. Who's had more deaths? He's had more deaths, according to their stupid statistics, which I don't even believe. You know, so here's the pivot, I think, on COVID. The pivot will be they'll dig into the science, which they already kind of knew already. They're going to finally dig into the science, and they're going to say, aha, turns out the vaccines were bad. Right? I think that's what they're going to do. I'm not saying that's the case, YouTube. Don't cut me off. I'm saying that's what the Democrats are going to do. They're going to try to position, we've got, you know, who screwed this up? It was Trump because he pushed this vaccine and Big Pharma made too much money and it's his fault. It's his fault. Now, could that work? Could that pivot work? I don't think so at this point. I don't think anybody, by the time if they do that pivot, and they may not, so it'll be quite a gamble. If they do that pivot, who's going to believe that? Who's going to send out the message? CNN? Is CNN even going to be on the air in 2024? I don't think so. I think they got to rebrand the whole network and call it something else. It is so not watched. The least watched name in news is what they should call it. Because who the hell's watching CNN now? Do you watch CNN? I bet none of you watch CNN. I only got 2 or 3 people in here, but I bet none of you watch CNN. I mean, it's a comfortable bet. I bet the porn girl doesn't even watch CNN. Because why would you? Why would you watch CNN? Potato Head Brian Stelter. Why would you watch MSNBC? They just spend all day calling everybody racist. That channel, if I was running MSNBC and I was a leftist, or if I just wanted to make a ton of money, I would replace everybody in MSNBC with a college student, a hot college student. Because why not? I mean, their takes are so awful. Joy Reid has a terrible take today. I'm going to talk about it later. What the hell was the take? Joy Reid back civil liberties, says human sacrifice is right there in Bible. What the hell kind of take is that? Human sacrifice is right there in the Bible? Joy Reid is, in my view, out of her gourd. Out of her gourd. She's an MSNBC host, for those of you who don't know. And, it's like these people are going to get out the word that it was all Trump's fault? How are you going to spin that? How are you going to spin that the man who made the economy work, didn't really have a lot of problems in his presidency other than the media calling him an a-hole 24/7, how are you going to make that work? Biden has screwed up literally everything. He has screwed up everything so bad we're in danger of not having enough food. But don't freak out about the food in America, because we do have way too much food. All we have to do is stop sending it overseas and we'd be fine, quite frankly. But the problem, and Sticks and Hammer talked about this, the problem is the down the road people who get food from us, they're really screwed. Those are the people who are going to starve to death. People in Africa are in big trouble because they get a lot of food from us. And the Chinese are in big trouble. The Chinese import food from us. So what are you going to do when people in America say, "Oh, we need the food here"? Sorry. That's going to be what we'll go back to. And I remember a tiny bit of this. When I was a real little kid. This is the way food worked to an extent. You didn't have all the food all the time, right? You couldn't go in the whole a supermarket like Whole Foods. There were no Whole Foods when I was a kid, but you'd go into a supermarket and the only fruit available was the fruit that was basically in season and whatever was imported. Now, we had bananas, but we didn't have blueberries, raspberries in the winter. No way. You would never see them in the winter. It would be bananas, apples, maybe you would get oranges from Florida, and that was about it. You didn't get blueberries. No way. Blueberries, like in the 70s, you wouldn't go into a store and find blueberries. Not in the winter. Blueberries in New Jersey, you got about a 2-week window of harvest time. It's amazing. I love those blueberries. Now it's extended. They stagger it a bit. And plus, you get imported blueberries from Michigan and Chile and all these different places around the world. What's going to happen with the breakdown of the supply chain is you won't be able to get your blueberries in the dead of winter anymore. You just won't be able to get them for a while. Same thing with a few other select items. We're going back to the 70s. So, and it's already started to happen. I've gone into my produce. I go to Produce Junction sometimes. And they're pretty good with things, but sometimes you just can't get certain things. Like I couldn't get Brussels sprouts one day. I'm not a huge fan, but I kind of got into Brussels sprouts when I figured out how to actually cook them correctly. You put a little garlic, salt and pepper, a little olive oil, cut them in half, throw them in the oven, crisp them up. They're pretty good. And good for you. But sometimes you can't get them. Now they're really expensive too. That's the other thing. The prices are going up and up and up. Oh my God! I went to the store to buy food and it was ridiculous. But that's what's going to happen. You're gonna see things run out, but it'll come back because locally we still have a lot of farms. Now, if you're in the city, you're going to be kind of screwed because you're going to constantly run out of stuff. You're going to have to eat more processed food because there's not going to be anything left. You're going to go to the store, everything will be gone, and so you're going to have to buy canned food because that's it. So get used to, I don't know, those little wieners in a can and Spam and whatnot. You should have bought some anyway during the pandemic. I did. I stocked up. I got a little bit of a stockpile. Not much, but enough that I could get through a few weeks. So, the supply chain is going to be a huge, huge issue. And people are pissed off about it. They're absolutely pissed off about the supply chain. And Pete Buttigieg could end the problem with a couple of phone calls. He could call LA, the LA ports, and say, unload those effing trucks or we're going to fine you $100,000 a day or $500,000 a day or whatever. He could threaten the hell out of them. And guess what? Those trucks and ships would be unloaded like that. But instead, they're trying to jam this up. And I think it's to drive up prices and to leave things a wreck, I guess, for the Republicans. And maybe to try this great reset thing, whatever the hell that is. But I don't think it'll work. I don't think they'll break the economy because what we'll do is we'll just go back to the way it was. And spring's coming up. Spring is coming up. So we really only need to get through 2 months. And I could probably get through 2 months if I had to with the food I just bought. Like if I really stretched it out between that and whatever food I could still get from the store. Yeah, I'd be fine. I think a lot of you would be fine, even if it was that big. JEC says, I have a huge pile of tuna and rice from the start of the lockdowns. Nice. Nice. Yeah, I love tuna too. I found that Target has the cheapest tuna right now. Star-Kissed albacore. It's only 5-ounce cans, but it's perfect for me for a lunch. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be great eating, but you can do it. I mean, back in the 70s, we didn't have all this stuff. We just didn't have all this stuff. I couldn't get blueberries in the winter. And I love blueberries. Couldn't get it. We didn't have dried fruits and all this exotic crap. We just didn't have it. Certain juices, you won't be able to get it. You just won't get it. Or it'll be so pricey, you'll be like, I can't buy that right now. So you're just going to have to eat whatever's around. And what's around? What did we have in the 70s? Let me remember. Lettuce. And produce-wise, you had lettuce and carrots, apples, bananas, oranges. That would be the produce side. Meat-wise, we pretty much had all the meats. It's just not going to be as much. Probably lean a little bit more towards chicken in the Northeast here. A little bit more towards beef in the middle of the country. A little more towards pork down south. So we got plenty of meats, But a lot of people, and fish, a lot of people didn't eat meat, back in the, way back before my time, but, or they would eat very little of it. They ate a lot of chicken. I just picked up a rotisserie chicken from the supermarket. They're still cheap. Now they do this thing, it's weird. They do a thing where they just sell you the breast. They cut off the legs and wings and just sell you the breast, which is, I like the breast meat better than the rest of the chicken anyway, so it's perfect for me. It's a perfect dinner. So you get the 2 breasts and on a rotisserie chicken, you can pick off all the bones or whatnot. I give some to Doggy. You liked the chicken last night. Wasn't that good? That was good chicken. So I think there'll be plenty of chickens, plenty of eggs, tons of eggs. Oh my God, we one thing we will never run out of, I think, in the United States is eggs, and that's protein. So you got your proteins. You're gonna have enough veggies and onions and potatoes. Potatoes, we got a ton of potatoes. Potatoes, carrots, stuff like that, especially this time of year. So I think food-wise we'll be okay. It's just going to be a no-frill situation. You're going to have to give up a lot of that stuff. And I've tried to give up cookies and cakes and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to get out of refined sugar. I got like one thing because I have a bit of a sweet tooth. I've got like, the granola bars with the dark chocolate on them. So I have maybe one of those after dinner. That's my one sweet. And maybe a piece of fruit. Fruit's still pretty cheap. And that's it. So I'm cutting back. I'm not eating ice cream and tasty cakes every day anymore. I miss them. I miss them so much. This is a time, I think, to cut back on that stuff anyway and really figure out what you need in terms of food. And look, COVID, the worst comorbidity is being fat. Don't be fat. Don't be fat. That's what they should have told everybody at the beginning of this. Don't be fat. Get some exercise. Go walking. Stop eating refined sugar. And try to eat more healthy. And don't eat a lot. You know, just eat until you're full and be done. I am a classic overeater. I used to eat like a garbage can. I just love eating. I love it. But I really cut back. And when you cut back on your food, your stomach kind of shrinks and then you don't need as much. So try to do that. Try to do that because it's healthier and you're going to save money, and this is the time to do it because we're going back to the 70s. We're going back to the 70s, high crime. But look, we survived the 70s. I was living in the 70s. I walked, my parents took me through Times Square one time when I was a little kid. I don't know why. We were in New York for the first time. I think we went to the Empire State Building and we walked through Times Square at that time. And believe me, it was crazy. Times Square back then, it was all like hucksters and there were porn theaters everywhere. I don't know why we walked through it other than to maybe just see it because it was still famous even though it was totally gross. But I just remember seeing a million tables on the sidewalk and guys hawking watches and everything else. So it was crazy. But, you know, the 70s wasn't a bad time, you know, in terms of music, culture. And I think that'll be the upside to this. The music and culture will finally turn around. It'll finally turn. And we'll get cool music again and stuff. Because people will be suffering. And when artists suffer, they make good stuff. I know, that sounds awful, doesn't it? Evan Monster says, I've lost about 20 pounds through simply cutting thick bacon out of my diet and cutting portions down a bit and increasing my water intake. Well, good for you. Wow, is thick cut bacon that bad for you? Bacon, yeah, I love bacon for BLTs. That's a one time I'll eat bacon. Oh, man. If I want to get a breakfast, a BLT is like my favorite. On a bagel, But, you know, bacon's just so bad for you. I mean, you know. It's so bad for you. If you do eat bacon, you got to get some citrus with it. You got to get some orange juice or you know, at least the tomato on a BLT. It kind of I think it cancels out the nitrates. The nitrates are really bad, I think, is the deal with bacon. Something like that. That's what I heard. And then there was a study said that bacon increases the chance of Alzheimer's, and I was like, whew, Biden must be eating bacon all day long. Oh, God, you made me hungry talking about thick-cut bacon. Really, you cut out thick-cut bacon and lost 20 pounds. God dang. That must really fatten you up. How much thick-cut bacon were you eating, Evan? How much? Oh, man. Joan would love some thick-cut bacon. I bet you would love that. Oh, my God. She would love it. But, yeah, good on you. And I'm trying to lose weight. I don't think I lost much weight, but I feel better because I'm not eating a lot of sugar. I'm eating very little sugar. And, you know, and I'm back to, you know, when I was married, my ex would buy me too many goodies. And I was getting fat. I was just getting fat. And now, and I didn't want those goodies. I won't go into it. I just got fat. So now that I'm back to my fighting weight, I feel better, and water intake's good. For me, it's iced tea intake. I drink iced tea all day long, but it's weak tea, so it's almost water. But yeah, this is the time. This is the time to really figure out what's important, because you're going to have to make decisions. Sugar is the worst things for you, says JEC. Yeah, it really is. Processed sugar. It's just bad for you. And I'll tell you this, too. I had someone, for whatever reason, buy me bread because I was out of bread. Not that I'm that poor, but they just said, oh, we bought too much bread. Here, have some. And it was that processed rye. It was a real processed rye, which I don't normally eat. When I go to the bakery, Versus Bakery, to get my bread, and let me tell you something, eating that process, I couldn't eat the rest of the bread I have. I'm going to throw the rest out because I don't know if it's in sugar or it's definitely got some preservatives in it. Evan Monster says, about 4 days a week I was eating it with eggs, bread, milk, and juice for breakfast. Wow, that's a hearty breakfast. I feel so much better and more energetic and don't feel like I'm going to pass out when putting my shoes on. Jesus, Evan. Jesus. Good. Good. Good on that. JEC says, LOL, yeah, my ex tried to make me fat too. Is this a thing women do? Get you so fat so you won't leave them? Yeah, I mean, my ex would buy candy. One time, she came home with, I swear to you, a 30-pound bag of candy. And I lost my damn mind. 30 pounds. 30 pounds of candy in one bag. It's a long story. I won't go into it. I don't want to bash my ex. I don't want to be that guy, but that was just the craziest. To me, that was the craziest purchase of all time. Like a 30-pound bag of candy. Like, I couldn't eat 30 pounds of candy if I ate candy for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, I just can't eat it. You know, I like a piece of candy once in a while. Who doesn't? But Jesus, 30 pounds. I was just like, are you out of your mind? But yeah, sugar is bad for you. It's bad. It's just bad. A lot of sugar, and there's so many things with sugar you don't know. Like the one thing I eat that I know has sugar in it, but I don't think I'll ever give it up is ketchup. You know, Heinz ketchup. I love Heinz ketchup. I put Heinz ketchup on a lot of things. JEC says, yeah, my ex literally tried to fat me up so other women wouldn't be interested in me. I guess that's a strategy. Yeah, Heinz ketchup, man, I'll never give that up. I could drink Heinz ketchup. I love it. Oh, so good. And barbecue sauce to some extent. Although these days I'm trying to transition more towards barbecue sauce that is spicier rather than sweet. And I think that has less sugar in it. But, I was talking about a Versus. I'm going a little long here, but I'm going to wrap up soon. But I go to a Versus bakery to buy my bread now, because I know when I eat a Versus bread or good Italian bakery bread, it feels good to eat. You know, this other processed bread, it felt horrible to eat. I always kind of felt sick after I ate lunch, and I would have a sandwich with this rye bread. So I'm just going to throw it out. It kind of makes me sick. I don't know why. And there's certain foods now that make me sick, like McDonald's food or fast food kind of makes me sick, depending on which one I eat, right? I used to love White Castle hamburgers. God, I love them. I can't eat that stuff anymore. The last time I ate White Castle hamburgers, I literally thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die. I felt so awful. I thought, did I get poisoned? That's how bad I felt. And I had gotten sick the previous time on White Castle, but I convinced myself, well, I just wasn't feeling good that day, and I really wanted some White Castle. I miss White Castle. I really do. These days, when I eat a hamburger, I get, good meat, unprocessed. Well, as unprocessed as, I mean, hamburgers are processed to a degree, but I grill them myself. No frozen stuff if I can help it. Although I still have some frozen burgers for the dark times. But I just got some patties. The store had some. They were on sale, and I'm like, yes, hamburgers, freshly grilled hamburgers. Sign me up. Cause yeah, I don't think they're. I mean, depending on the meat you get, and if you grill them, don't fry them, grill them. They're reasonably healthy. Put some onions and lettuce on there. Reasonably healthy burger on good bread. Again, it's all this processed stuff, man. They put corn in it and all kinds of filler. Ugh, it's just gross. So, and that's the problem with candy, really. I mean, it's a lot of sugar. Even high quality candy. Like if you eat Girardi's, the little square chocolates, oh man, they're so good. They're so good. But if you eat like some kind of low rent chocolate, you like feel awful. You like eat it and it's just like, I don't feel good. So that to me is a big part of eating. I don't know how we got on this subject, but I guess supply chain. Like if you eat and you feel awful, I think you're eating the wrong stuff. You know. I often think about trying the Jordan Peterson diet of just nothing but meat, but I don't think I could afford it at this point. But I try to eat more meat in my diet, more meat than breads and fun stuff, you know. But on that note, I'm very, very hungry, and I got to make some more videos, so I'm going to wrap it here. If you guys have any questions, now is the time to ask. Thanks for tuning in. I know we went from world events to talking about hamburgers. That sounds like me. That sounds like me. Joan, you got anything to say before I call it quits? No? All right. Little Joan says bye. Says bark. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to be doing this live stream every Sunday at 2 p.m. Hopefully I'll get my boomer ass to know the StreamYard better, and I'll get back on the StreamYard so I can get your comments up, because that to me was a lot of fun. I'll be doing the videos. See you later, JEC. I'll be doing the regular videos today, and we're going to get started on them. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.